This is Coffee Pot Week.
The Raiders, not impressive in their win over Franklin County.
This is Coffee Pot Week.
The Raiders, not impressive.
This is Coffee Pot.
Coffee County, bad. Tullahoma, wins. Coffee County, bad. Tullahoma, wins. Coffee County, bad. Tullahoma, wins. Based on fact, look at those historical scores. Coffee County coming off the greatest season in school history. Last year, their 100th year of football. They went 9-3, and they won a playoff game, beat Stewart's Creek. They lost a lot of seniors. History says Coffee County does not come back and have anywhere close to that kind of team this year. History says Tullahoma rebounds from his 4-6 and goes 9-1, maybe 8-2. But I gotta say, I like the Wildcats in this coffee pot.
I'm going to make my prediction is going to be that Grant Chadwick attempts field goals this week and he makes 3 field goals. Attempts field goals this week and he makes 3 field goals.
Coffee County, bad. Tullahoma, wins. Coffee County, bad. Tullahoma, wins. Coffee County, bad. Tullahoma wins coffee pot.
Oh man, it just keeps getting better. Welcome into Go Ball Sports, Season 2, Episode 3. And I want to tell you before we get started, I want to remind you that we are live on Facebook Wednesday night, 6 o'clock. But if you can't catch the show at 6, you can watch it anytime you want on Facebook. We also have it on YouTube at Go Ball Sports. And we're on Twitter at Go Ball Sports. We need followers for this thing to keep growing. We need you to help us out. If you like what you see, give us a follow. Subscribe on YouTube. That's what we need. So we appreciate your participation in Gold Ball Sports. It was Coffee Pot Week. Tullahoma did win 16-0. Coffee County was bad. And Grant Chadwick did kick 3 field goals. Ken, I like our prognostication. It turned out pretty well.
Yeah, it sure did. It sure did. A great intro there, Dave. And but what an exciting night in Coffee County Friday night. And Tullahoma pulled things together. We said they was going to improve week 1 to week 2. Scott, they did right at the perfect time.
Hey, special teams was dominant. Yeah. The defense was dominant. I'm not sure what caliber of offense we were playing, but the defense was dominant. However, offense still got a way to go.
Yeah,
got some work to do.
Yeah. One of the keys we talked about, was telling us offense really, getting traction on offense. Keeping drives going. Had some positive first down plays, but did not convert. We talked about them needed to be clutch on third downs. I think they need to find more consistency on third down really going into this week in week 3 against Rockville.
It was so hot, and I was sweating so much that in the process of continuing to wipe with the towel and the constant adjustment of headphones, I broke my $700 glasses. So I proudly wear this $22 pair from Walmart because it enables me to see. Otherwise, you'd be going to Rockville by yourself Friday night because I wouldn't be any help to you.
Yeah.
But we got that straightened out. We're all good. I'm not sure what else we say about the coffee pot. It's always great to beat Coffee County. That's the #1 goal for a lot of Tullahoma fans. And, you had your reasons for what you foresaw. I had my reasons for what we foresaw. And it pretty much turned out that way.
Yeah.
I mean, they're kind of a one-man show. And that one man, he's good. Probably a better baseball player than a football player. He's no Alante Taylor. He's no Jacoby Thomas. We didn't let him loose. We contained #2, and that proved to be the winning formula.
Yeah, you cut the head off the snake, the body dies. And really, teams were slugging it out in that first quarter, Scott. Just only 3 points scored. And really, we talk about really what triggered Tullahoma was Grant Chadwick's big 53-yard field goal late in that first quarter to stake Tullahoma to 3-0 lead. Scott, in high school football, that's the farthest field goal attempt I've seen made in high school as long as I've been watching. So it was a beauty. And then things continued. The second quarter, he booms a 47-yard field goal. So he has, effectively, you add them together, 100 yards worth of field goals his first 2 kicks. Tullahoma leads 6-0. But you talked about special teams. And our boy Kai Johnson in the punt return game was fantastic in the first half. He returned a punt all the way down to the Coffee County 8-yard line, and then Tullahoma finally scored a touchdown on a dazzling pitch and catch from Mason Bratcher to Hargrove in the corner of the end zone. That was a beautiful play to put Tullahoma up 13-zip.
Rewatched the game last night, maybe Monday night. And was even more impressed with Tullahoma's defense as I rewatched the game. But, man, the last 5 minutes of the game, there were 5 interceptions.
Yeah. And the Tullahoma defense was tremendous. As you said, we dominated special teams. Chadwick tacks on a 3rd field goal in the second half, the only score in the second half. So Tullahoma wins it 16-0. Stingy defense, great special teams, great in the return game, the punt return game. But if you're Tullahoma, you have 4 interceptions that you get in the. We're fixing to have some Shaker shout-outs here in a second. But in the second half, if you get 4 picks, you want to get more than 3 points. And so I think there are room for Tullahoma certainly to improve. But, hey, you can never doubt a 16-0 convincing win where you pitch a shutout against your #1 rival. A tremendous win. Congratulations to Coy Sisk and that Tullahoma Wildcat staff. Sisk gets his first coaching win. You had the interview post-game, and the Wildcats were victorious, and they go to 1-1 on the season. There it is.
Go Cats. Woohoo!
Yeah.
I got a Shaker shout-out for this week. It goes to Colby Tucker, my man Colby Tucker. I hadn't seen the stats. Tullahoma's not putting their stats on Max Prep so far this year. That's probably because offensively they're not exactly glowing. But I don't know how many tackles Colby Tucker had, but he had a bunch. 12 tackles solo.
Yeah.
11 solo.
11 solo, 1 assisted, 2 sacks. Let me tell you, it looked like number 13 had 25 tackles. Colby Tucker, you the man.
Yeah. Yeah, spearhead.
Yeah, Shaker shout out.
Yeah, so
brother.
I've got a Shaker shout out, and certainly, it's got to be the Tullahoma secondary. Early in the game, we were talking about the only passes Coffee County in the first half, and it was kind of inauspicious, was throwing screens, just screens. We said they're not going downfield. Well, we saw in the fourth quarter when they had to go downfield why they didn't want to go downfield early in the game. Tullahoma gets 4 interceptions on the contest. So my Shaker shout out goes to those 4 young men who had those interceptions. Ethan Hargrove, Will Hyden, Liam Grider, and Caden Paul. 4 picks for that Tullahoma secondary. Ball Hawks. Congrats, Tullahoma D and that secondary.
Dave, give us a Shaker shout out.
All right, Ken, you going to shake it for me, country
I got
girl?
it. I got you.
All right. My Shaker shout out this week It's going to go to the guy that I interviewed on the blue couch, which we're about to watch, Mr. Daddy Chatty, Grant Chadwick. My man hit 3, and Ken called it. Field goals. Hey, shake it for me. Hey, Mr. Grant Chadwick. Average field goal was almost 46 yards. Hit a 53, 47, and a 42-yard field goal and flipped the field. Average punts were almost 46 yards. And that's tough to do. NFL records, 43 set by Stonehouse last year. Incredible. Grant
53,
Chadwick.
but who's counting?
Okay, there you go. All right.
Let's go to the blue couch. You talked about Grant, boom, Chadwick. Let's go to the blue couch and hear from Mr. Chadwick.
All right, we're on the blue couch with Grant Chadwick,
What's up?
the incredible kicker, punter, everything special teams guy for the Wildcats. We're going to dive into question 1. Grant, you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's do it. What goes through your brain when you're lining up those 50-plus yard field goals?
Okay, so that's definitely a question a lot of people, when they watch me kick, they probably think, it's so far, and it's like nerve-wracking. But at the end of the day, when you say 53, like, so Coffee Pot is a 53 left hash. I've heard 53 left hash 100 times in my life. I mean, I've kicked it on like multiple different fields, not with the pressure of, a rivalry game of with people rushing, whatever. But it's a place I've been before. One of the biggest things about kicking really is visualization. And so, I mean, the night before or on the bus ride to the game, whenever, I'll close my eyes and I'll see myself, taking my steps back, and getting ready to kick the ball. And so really there's not a spot on the field you could put me where I haven't seen myself, whether it's in my head or like I've already kicked that kick, in a training camp, whatever. So it just feels like home being out there. I've already been in that spot in my head. So, I mean, I'm just ready to.
I'm going to throw in a wrench here. I'm going to throw in a wrench. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. What's the longest field goal you've hit?
So that was actually my end game PR, the 53. I hit a 46 last year was my furthest. I've hit a 63 and a 64, like in training, but in a game, the 53 is the furthest. So that was the record breaker there.
I'm going to have you back. I've got so many questions for you. All right. So second question. That was a good answer. What word of advice do you have for younger guys who look up to you in their football journey?
Okay, that's actually pretty ironic. I had a kid after the coffee pot come up to me and get my attention. And he had one of those toy balls that the cheerleaders throw out. He's like, Grant, watch me. And he threw it up and kicked it. He's like, I'm you. And this is a true story. And that was so cool to me. Cause like one of the one position that you wouldn't expect little kids to idolize when they're watching high school football would be the kicker. They'd always be like the quarterback or like a receiver scoring touchdowns, running back, whatever. But it just feels good to impact the youth in a way that's not very typical. And so my advice to those kids, really any position, it's not just someone that wants to be a kicker, because we all kind of have to go through the same path, especially the people that want to continue to play at the next level. It's really just to take care of your body, and you have to think of your progression, developing your skills is more than just the work you put in on the field too. It's also mental, like I said earlier, with visualization, and then like I said, taking care of your body. For a kicker especially, you got to be flexible, and just stay healthy. But you just have to fall in love with whatever it is you're trying to be big at. You just have to fall in love with it, and it'll help you just take the steps to grow in your skills.
All right, I'm going to couch cut question 3. I'm going to give you one that's easy that you didn't know of, but I want to flow into this. Is it refreshing to you to see the resurgence of like star kickers, that people are finally getting the idea that special teams can actually make and break a game? Is that pretty cool to you?
So I think really within the team, all 4 years at high school, we've had pretty good special teams because my brother was there. But for the people that I'm with specifically, hearing them say to me that like they're so happy I can hit it in the end zone because, it makes the other team drive 80 on a kickoff, or because they don't have to go tackle and then be tired and then go out and play defense after just getting lit up on a kickoff. Like when I actually hear the words like thank you, like thank you for doing this, it makes me feel good. But also, I remember last year after the Shelbyville game, it was I had a really good game. It was similar to the coffee pot. I had 3 field goals, extra point and all touchbacks. And I remember Sisk had an interview, and he touched on me because I had been getting interviewed that game for the player of the game. And I remember he said something about how it's just having a weapon that can, flip the field on punt and make the other team drive 80. And so, it feels really good that I can impact the game that way. And just having people acknowledge that, being able to get another thing, I've had kids on the team say, all we have to do is get in field goal range, we'll get 3. And obviously, I don't want them to think that I want us to get touchdowns. I want to be kicking extra points. But for them to have that kind of faith in me and realize that me doing my job can really affect the game, it feels great.
Yeah, certainly in the stands, we feel the same.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty refreshing feeling to sit at a high school game and know that your kicker has it. So, all right. So question 4. This is going to be a tough one. And we're going to come back to this once you reach the NFL. But if you had one NFL team you could see yourself playing for, who would it be?
So obviously, if I was in the position where I had the chance to go to the NFL, I wouldn't care. Just playing the league, it's huge. But growing up, I was
playing it safe. I get it.
Yeah. But growing up, I was a big Pittsburgh Steelers fan. I still am. That's just kind of what my dad passed down to me. So I'm excited to watch our boys this year because they're looking good in preseason. But yeah, that's probably what I'd pick just because incredible fan base. And that's the one that my family grew up. So it'd be pretty easy for them to just stay with that team. But
nice. All right. Last question. Any game day superstitions or traditions that you have?
So I'm pretty superstitious, in general. If it's game day, if we're walking past a pole and my friend goes one way, I have to go the same way. I can't be that person that jinxes us. But as far as traditions, one that I've had for the past few years is I keep a Sharpie in my bag, and so on my kicking leg. And now I would just get a tattoo, but mom's not supporting it right now. So I actually have Sharpie. I'll write some sort of symbolic, like a cross or something, or some sort of scripture. I always put it on my kicking leg. And just kind of has to do with something I'll touch before every kickoff, before I put my hand in there. And it just kind of represents me and, playing for God and keeping my faith in him, and just knowing that every win or loss is with him, and that whether I play good or not, at the end of the day, he's still going to be there for me, and I'm going to keep grinding and hoping that I can just do my best through him. So that's my scripture there.
Awesome. Dude.
Pre-game tradition.
All right, so coffee pot game.
Yeah.
There's 53, 47, and 42.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. Grant Chadwick of the Wildcats, the amazing special teams guru. Thank you for coming by and sitting on the blue couch and letting me pick your brain for a little bit.
For sure. Thank you.
Right. All right, just to let you know, I did rewatch the film as well. That 53-yard punt looked like it had another 5 yards at least on it. So this kid's got a leg. I'm so glad I got to sit down with him. What a stellar young man. Y'all, back to you.
Yeah, and that 53-yarder field goal did clear the crossbar with room to spare.
Yeah, and he said he kicked 63, 64 in practice. The NFL record with Tom Dempsey, the guy that had, half a foot with the Saints, that was from the 60s, lasted for 40, 50 years before it was broken. So that dude's got a thunder foot. Great interview.
All right, let's quickly go through some high school football information as we turn the page here on Go Ball Sports. Quick look at the scoreboard from last week. I'll once again point out things that really stood out to me. Shelbyville beating Marshall County Thursday night stood out to me. Loretto beating Lawrence County. That's a terrible loss for Lawrence County. South Pittsburgh beating Franklin County. That's actually a pretty good showing for Franklin County. 28-14, I thought. Not a lot there surprised me. Eagleville beating Community 54-0. Grundy County, anytime Grundy County wins, it's a surprise. They beat Huntland 14-13 last week. And Fayetteville got beat 0-2 are the Tigers. Moore County a winner there 34-14. So those are the things that kind of stood out from last week's games to me. This week's schedule, look at that first one, Ken. We know a little bit about what Haywood brings to the table. That's who Tullahoma beat in the semifinals 2 years ago to go to the state championship. Oakland at Haywood. That's a pretty big
Great
matchup
matchup
there, isn't it?
Yeah, sure is.
Coffee County at Shelbyville. I think Shelbyville will roll over Coffee County and score more points against the Red Raiders than Tullahoma did. That margin will be more than 16. Tullahoma at Rockville. We'll talk a little bit about that in just a minute. Look, we've got our first Region 5-5A game of the season. Lawrence County travels to Fayetteville to take on Lincoln County. That's the way the TSSAA set this thing up. There are region games this week, especially in Region 5-1A. Another big game to look at there, Fayetteville at Giles County. Both of those powerhouse programs are 0-2 on the season, so somebody is going to get a win there. And then we get down to Single A, and we see those Region 5-1A contests there. Eagleville at Moore County, Collinwood at Cornersville, Wayne County at Richland. At Eagleville, Moore County is a big game. Eagleville coming off a huge win, Moore County 2-0. So that's some games to look for this Friday night. We want to see most of you folks, though, in Rockville, Tennessee. Take a look at our poll for week 2. I got to clean that thing up. Man, that's nasty. At number 10, Richland comes in after the win over Cascade. Marshall County falls to number 9 after their loss to Shelbyville, and Shelbyville enters the poll, jumping Marshall County at number 8. We do take head-to-head competition into account here. Tullahoma jumps into the poll at number 7. Hey, they shut out a ranked team. Watertown, 2-0. Watertown beat Gordonsville. Eagleville at 2-0. They beat Community again. And Oakland, after their loss to Center Grove, Indiana, I don't know what Center Grove, Indiana has, but we know Oakland's great. But they're 1-1, so they fall. Sequatchie County, this is the most unlikely top 3 you will ever see in this poll. It won't look anything like this in 2 or 3 weeks. But Sequatchie County, number 3, 2-0. They beat East Ridge 59-24. They'll face another ranked team, Watertown, this week. Marion County, 2-0, the Mountain. They went and beat Dade County, Georgia, 10-6. They'll face Chattanooga Central this week. And Moore County, the undisputed number 1 after their win over Fayetteville. Again, number 1 and number 5 square off this week. Yep, the poll leans toward the smaller schools early because they're winning the most games. So Moore County, number 1 in our week 2 South Central Tennessee high school football poll. So that's a quick roundup there. Now we're not going to spend a lot of time on this because honestly, we don't know a lot about Rockville, the Rockets. 1-1 on the season. Dave, I think they've got a great player that we need to know about. Ken, tell us about Rockville's top player here.
Yeah, Jalen Morgan. This guy took a visit. There you see his picture with Nick Saban. Very interested in the University of Alabama. If Nick Saban gets you in his office and talks to you, you're a pretty serious player. This guy's a 6-foot, 180-pound athlete. So we're probably going to see him in the defensive backfield, probably at corner, the return game on special teams, and probably wide receiver. Put him in the slot, maybe go Wildcat some. But they do also have a big quarterback, too. So his name's Brendan Mayhew, 6'2", 190. And they got a big rush defensive end with good size and power that's really good, too. His name is Timmy Williams. So those are some guys to watch. Brendan Mayhew, the quarterback. Jalen Morgan, the athlete. And as I said, Timmy Williams, the defensive end. So Wildcat fans, look for those 3 guys Friday night, and we'll have those guys pinpointed throughout the game.
I'm going to jump out here, and I know it's not what I picked at the beginning of the season, but because of Tullahoma's offensive woes, I'm going to have to go with Rockville in this game at home. I hope the Wildcats can just get some rhythm in offense. I'd settle for that. You know, this is a playoff sport. This game, in the big scheme of things, doesn't matter. We just need to improve. So I'm taking Rockville by a touchdown.
Well, and we see what a one difference maker on the field can do. And then Tullahoma's first game, Javarion Ote for 3 touchdowns. The first game that we played at, against Stewart's Creek. So hopefully we have better success against Morgan and Company this week.
Absolutely. So that's our high school wrap up. We're going to do these things in different orders as the seasons progress. We had to start with the coffee pot in high school football tonight, but right now we are going to switch gears completely and talk a little pro football with our man Dave.
We're going to do hello. We're going to do the inaugural Dave's Dandy Dozen, which is going to be myself. We're going to do some NFL power rankings, except for top 10 like ESPN does and Botched. We're going to do a top 12, so we're going to get right to it, y'all. At number 12, I got the Seattle Seahawks. Geno Smith had a great last season, 70% completions, 30 touchdowns, and almost 4,300 yards. When asked in the preseason how he thinks the season's going to go, he says he still has something to prove. So look out for Geno Smith and his targets, DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Both of those guys over 1,000 yards receiving. The Seahawks are still revamping their run game and bolster their defense with Jamal Adams coming off the PUP list. Not a stellar season ahead for the Seahawks, but definitely a decent one. And so at number 11, I have the Los Angeles Chargers. We all recall the way the season ended last year for the Chargers. A blown 27-point lead in the playoffs to the Jags. Can they recover is the question. They brought in a new offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore. He was hired to get the most out of this offense, which last year woefully underperformed. Not a ton of high expectations out of the mostly lackluster offense, but a defense led by Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack will certainly get the job done. And a lot of pressure is put on Justin Herbert in that hefty $262 million contract that he pulled in. So we'll see how they do. Detroit Lions come in at number 10. They have a two-headed running back monster. They're going to try to this year with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. 4 players that I have to watch, and I'm going to lump one into the quarterback trio of Bridgewater, Goff, and Hendon Hooker. Jahmyr Gibbs is another one. I certainly believe that Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to have a breakout year at wide receiver, and Aiden Hutchinson is another guy to watch. Had a top 5 offensive ranking last year, and it only got better. I'm believing the hype, y'all. Ford Field, for the first time in its existence, sold out season tickets, and I believe they have a shot at winning the NFC North, which doesn't say a lot. So, at number 9, I have the New York Jets. The addition of Aaron Rodgers and Dalvin Cook made this team a legitimate certain threat. However, the offense boils down to how fast their receiving crew, Aaron Rodgers and Dalvin Cook, can gel into one cohesive unit. Also, the offensive line needs a turnaround this year for sure. At number 8, Jacksonville Jaguars. Look for Trevor Lawrence to have his first of many career years this year. I know last year he did great, but this is going to step him into elite status this year. I believe Trevor Lawrence is on pace to have a stellar season. With a decent set of receivers led by Calvin Ridley and Evan Ingram, he's going to do just fine. Also, the Jags are stout on their secondary, but lack some of the heavy D-line that we're used to the Jaguars having. But I put them at number 8 regardless, and I think they're going to have a great year. Number 7, the Dallas Cowboys. There are some questions, though. Is Dak ready for the season? And what's with the Trey Lance signing? The 1-2 of CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Cooks looks good on paper. However, a decent O&D line with some talent in the secondary, they have a good year coming. The one thing missing is a seasoned tight end. We all come to know and love tight ends out of the Dallas Cowboys. But they did draft somebody pretty talented, so can Fant step into that role? We'll have to wait and see. Number 6, the Miami Dolphins. Look for Tua to have a great year with targets like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle receiving. And look for Emmanuel Ogbah to rebound after a poor season last year. Pretty talented defense. Looks to give the offense room to work. However, there's a downside. Dawood Davis, wide receiver, was carted off the field during scrimmage. He's a rookie drafted out of Western Kentucky. Looked to make an impact this year, so we hope for a speedy recovery for Dawood. At number 5, the San Francisco 49ers. A lot of preseason blunders to overcome from these 49ers, from Nick Bosa's holdout to the mishandling of Trey Lance, which they botched entirely. Is Brock Purdy for real? Or was he a one-hit wonder? A stacked offense and a decent O-line. Can they utilize their weapon into one formed unit? There are some gaps in the defense that need addressing, namely half of the secondary and the D-line. Still think the San Francisco 49ers are going to have a pretty decent year. At number 4, y'all, it gets tight near the end. The Buffalo Bills. This is one team I'm not completely sure of this season. Has the window of greatness closed for Josh Allen and these Bills? Von Miller and Khalil Shakir are still questionable for week 1 action. We'll see how quickly they can recover. And we'll see if they're for real this year as they face one of the toughest schedules in the NFL. There's also, I hate even saying it, the Madden curse. So prayers up for Josh Allen and that Madden curse. Number 3, the Philadelphia Eagles, with a top-tier quarterback and a talented wide receiver crew and a good O-line. Watch out for these Eagles. Fletcher Cox and Hassan Reddick are still marked questionable for week 1 participation, hopefully healthy soon. A slew of tough games starting week 9 through week 14. That will give us a clear look at what the Eagles are capable of. Now bet Jalen Hurts. Y'all, mark it here. This is his year, period. In a league of stars at quarterback, he will shine the brightest this year. And if you have complaints, send it to us. Scott Shasteen at Gold Ball Sports. Number 2, Cincinnati Bengals. We all know Joey B is one of the premier quarterbacks in the league, and he's questionable for game 1. I still believe he's going to be in shape because he's a tough dude. Talented offense with Mixon, Chase, Higgins, led by Burrow, will be a force, I promise you. Health has been an issue, though, for the Bengals throughout the preseason. If they can remain healthy, they'll end up with a stellar season this year. And, of course, I hate saying this. Number 1, Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes, okay, I've said his name, moving on. Chris Jones, Chiefs sack leader the last 6 seasons, is being, I'm not going to say the word, is being selfish and has a holdout till week 8. Omenihu will be suspended for the first 6 games as well, so the pass rush game is where for the Chiefs? We don't know yet. We'll see. The Chiefs' rookie wide receiver, however, Rashee Rice, made a splash in the last preseason game with 8 catches for almost 100 yards. So they've added another weapon at wide receiver. Old man Kelsey Pacheco and a decent defense secondary puts the talented Chiefs on a good path this year. I'm going to give you just real quick some games to watch. On Thursday, September 7th at 7:20 and NBC, Lions versus the Chiefs. On Sunday, the 10th at 12 p.m. at CBS has the Bengals versus the Browns. The Jaguars face the Colts on the 10th as well at noon on Fox. Dolphins versus Chargers at 3:25 on the 10th at CBS. And Monday night, I am certainly going to be tuning into this. 7:15, the Bills take on the Jets. ABC, ESPN. So that is Dave's Dandy Dozens. Back to y'all.
Jets, too low, buddy.
Yeah.
Cowboys, too high.
I'm not going to argue with that. That's a great report. You know, Dave's Dandy does in there. Just give us a thumbnail sketch of that. It looks like it's AFC heavy. The AFC stronger than the NFC. You're right. Them Eagles are going to be tough this year, man. The Eagles are going to be. I don't think Kansas City's going to win it this year. That's all I'm going to say about this. I'm rooting for Kansas City not to win the Super Bowl this year.
You're taking the field.
I'm taking
like
the
we
field.
used to do when Tiger Woods.
Yeah, I'm going to take the field. But I like what he said about the Lions. You know, that's a team that has never won a Super Bowl. I would like to see Detroit make some noise in that NFC this year.
I'll tell you what, next week we'll get into a little more NFL. Dave will bring his Dandy Dozen every week. But next week, rather than a Dandy Dozen, we'll talk about the opening weekend. We'll make some picks, that sort of thing. All right, we're moving right along here. It's an action-packed show. I want to give a participation trophy out. Ken?
Gold Ball Sports, where participation trophies simply don't cut it.
I didn't want to do this, but they forced it on me. Visitors concession stand. Coffee County Middle School. Friday, night. Yes, parched people. They ran out of water and Powerade before halftime. Before the halftime rush, they were out of water and Powerade on the visitor side concession stand. That's a health issue. That's dangerous. You had 1,000 people sitting over there for hours in 90-degree heat, super high humidity, no water, no Powerade. What were you people thinking? We got all this promotion on social media. Oh, go to the visitors concession stand and support Bosky's. Look, I love Bosky's, okay? But all they had to offer was $12 sandwiches and no water and no Powerade. I'm sorry, we went over to the home concession stand and ate. Visitors concession stand, I think it was your first time. I think it was your first home game. You knew for 2 weeks we were going to have this kind of weather. You ought to have had 15,000 bottles of Powerade there so everybody could drink 2 or 3. You blew it Friday night, and that's my participation trophy.
Oh, great job. Great job. Great rant right there. That's what the participation trophy is all about. Well, mine involves fan interference, and I've got a video for you from Monday night's game between the Colorado Rockies and the Atlanta Braves. Dave, cue it up. I got a couple beefs with this video. Number one, look, Braves fans were holding their breath. They've got the best record in baseball. They've got the best player in the National League. Outside Shohei Ohtani, Ronald Acuna Jr. is the best player in baseball. That guy's already had one ACL surgery a couple years back. I thought when that first guy put a little bear hug on him, the second guy nailed him. Good thing his leg did not lock up and have a knee injury there on that particular play. But I thought the security at Colorado did a terrible job. They mamby-pambied these guys. Look, you got to strong arm these guys and you got to rip them down to the ground. You got to body slam them and make an example out of them on the field. Look, fans, when you go to a game, you can boo. You can make hand gestures if you want to. You can yell as loud as you want to. But don't be throwing Cokes and soda pops and beer on the opposing fans in front of you, okay? And don't rush the field and interfere with the game, the players, or the referees. One of my first memories in 1975 was watching Minnesota against Dallas in the 1975 playoff game. Dallas beat Minnesota on a Hail Mary pass from Staubach to Drew Pearson. But I remember, as a 10-year-old kid, a fan throwing a whiskey bottle out of the stands and laying out the head referee, blood on his forehead, and just laying him out on the field. That's my first memory of a player or a referee getting hurt on the field because of a fan. There's no room in the game for participation award to the Colorado Rockies or Atlanta Braves fan, whoever that fans those two clowns were that come on the field. But security, get a little bit more physical with these guys and teach them a lesson.
You ever seen a player been put in that situation act any more passive than Ronald Acuna Jr.? I mean, he just basically stood there. I mean, he could have cleaned those people out, cleaned their clocks, knocked them out on the field, and he would have been perfectly justified. Just watch and look what happens when people run on NFL fields, okay? They're in the hospital for a week. That's what you deserve when you run on the field. Great pick. Great pick. All right, participation trophies are over. It's time now for a little Pigskins pep talk.
All right, we've got some Pigskins pep talk here, and we're going to look at the projected win total for the Southeastern Conference teams. Of course, this year is the last year. There's 14 teams. There is an East-West division. Next year, there'll be 16 teams as Oklahoma and Texas join up. Folks, we got new microphones right here, so we can new microphones, so we don't have to scream as loud as I'm doing right now. But we're going to start out right here at the bottom. Now, what I see here, it looks a little bit top-heavy. We're going to get to that in a minute, but let's start right here at the bottom. The Vanderbilt Commodore Scott projected with 3.5 wins. They've got one already. They beat Hawaii 35-28 in their first game in a lightning delay game. Vanderbilt, well, looking good. They need 3 more wins to go over on their projected win total. But they're definitely the worst team in the SEC in football. Normally they are, definitely this year.
Is anybody more consistent than Vanderbilt at being the worst team in the SEC?
No, they're not.
There's
Definitely
nobody
not.
even close.
Definitely not. And that's why it makes Will Levis look so bad, because he got beat by Vanderbilt last year. So let's look at this next team. Now, this is very surprising. Not characteristic for Vanderbilt, not characteristic for the Florida Gators. 5.5 wins. They're not even projected to be bowl eligible at 6 wins to go to a bowl game. They've got a tough opener against the Utah Utes next, tomorrow night, Thursday night. So 5.5 projected win total. They've got a tough non-conference schedule. They've got the Miami Hurricanes and Florida State Seminoles, as well as their SEC slate. Scott, Gators going to be hard-pressed with new quarterback Graham Mertz, a transfer from Wisconsin, to get 6 wins here.
Absolutely, they'll be hard-pressed. And I love seeing them near the bottom.
Yeah, and so that's a theme. I mentioned the first transfer quarterback, Graham Mertz of Wisconsin. That is who the Florida Gators have put their stakes on this year. That's who they have their confidence in. They went around the country, got him. So several SEC quarterbacks transferring in that are starting. It's going to make an impact this year. We're going to talk about some of them here tonight. 6.5. Now you have 6 teams, almost half the teams at 6.5 wins. Now, to me, this shows the strength of the SEC conference. The Southeastern Conference, the best conference in football, because these teams all recruit well. They cannibalize each other, but any of these teams on any given Saturday could take a top 10 team out. So who's going to break out of this pack right here? I'm going to project the SEC East and West final standings here and show you who I think is going to break out. But you've got the South Carolina Gamecocks, 6.5 wins projected, along with the Missouri Tigers, both these teams in the SEC East. Then you have 3 SEC West teams. You have Hugh Freeze taking over for the Auburn Tigers with transfer quarterback Peyton Thorne. That's a new name. Hugh Freeze hopes that Peyton Thorne will be a thorn in the side of SEC opponents this year. He transferred for the Michigan State Spartans. This team right here, the Arkansas Razorbacks. KJ Jefferson at quarterback, Rocket Sanders at running back. This team sitting dangerous at 6.5 wins. We'll see where we have them in our projected division rankings in just a minute. And Mississippi State, they return lots of starters and superstar quarterback Will Rogers, but it's life after Mike Leach, as we lost him tragically last year. So those are some teams projected at 6.5. Now let's look over here. Another team, 6.5. I'm not really buying the Kool-Aid on this one right here. Devin Leary, some people say, including Kirk Herbstreit, that this team right here is going to be a breakout team in the SEC this year.
Scott's favorite team.
Scott's favorite team, the Kentucky Wildcats.
Yeah, they're always overhyped. They'll be better than last year because Will Levis is gone.
That's a good point. But Devin Leary, some say he's going to be the top impact transfer at quarterback. There are some others, but we're going to see. He came over from the NC State. We'll see how Devin Leary does with the Kentucky Wildcats. Now, we get to these 5 teams right here. These were the 5 teams in our first show 3 weeks ago that I believe have a shot to get in, 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 4 teams that I believe has a shot to get into the college football playoffs. Not this one right here. So I'm going to get to them in just a second. Texas A&M. They return 19 starters. Connor Wegman back at quarterback. But the big changes they've made is Jimbo Fisher's not going to be calling the plays. I'll touch on that here when we get to the division rankings. Ole Miss, they've got Spencer Sanders, who's transferred in from Oklahoma State. They have their quarterback returning from last year. And they also have Big Walker Howard, who's transferred from the LSU Tigers, who was a past 5-star. Couldn't cut the mustard at LSU with their quarterback there. So they still got Judkins. They're gonna be right there on that win total right there. So 7 or 8, 4. I think that's about right for Ole Miss. The Tennessee Vols, 9.5 wins projected. They've got 3 very difficult games I think they're going to have trouble with. this one, this one, and this one. Now look, folks, Georgia has the schedule advantage. They have the path of least resistance. Tennessee has to play Alabama and Texas A&M. Georgia on the crossover plays Auburn and Ole Miss on the crossover. So schedule advantage goes to Georgia on that. The big matchup here is going to be Tennessee November the 18th against Georgia. Georgia could probably will come in number one. Tennessee, their shot to knock off number one, just like they did Alabama last year. So Tennessee, big games. This one, this one, and this one. They're not going to lose all three of them. So who are they going to get? They could possibly get two of them. Long shot, but possible because they got this one and this one in Knoxville, a tough place to play. Moving up, the LSU Tigers, they have a tough opener. They open with Florida State on Sunday night, going to be the marquee matchup of the Labor Day weekend. Jaden Daniels returns at quarterback, the Arizona State transfer. They are very strong on the lines of scrimmage. Let's see what Brian Kelly does here in year two. He beat Nick Saban in year one and won the West and got to the SEC championship in the loss to Georgia. So now you got the top two teams. According to the experts on projected win totals right here, Alabama, the most difficult schedule in the country, in my opinion. They've got non-conference against Texas. If they do get to the SEC championship, they'll have to play Georgia, but they've got these two big road games right here. I'm looking at Tennessee in the East. They got Tennessee at home. They got Tennessee and they got A&M. So they do play these two teams, and all these West teams, they've got to play every single one of those. Not an easy schedule for the Alabama Crimson Tide. They've got quarterback instability. Three or four guys may play in the first game against MTSU on Saturday. That's going to play out. Nick Saban did not release a depth chart on Monday as he normally does, so it's still up in the air who's going to be the starter. I think it's going to be Jalen Milroe. Alabama's going to go back to murder ball, running the ball with a big offensive line and 5 strong running backs. We'll see what happens with the Tide. And the path of least resistance right here, Shirley, Georgia projected only to win maybe or lose one game here. Scott, 11.5. So that means between 12 and 11, obviously 11.5. This is the game the Georgia Bulldogs have to look out for. I do not see anybody else on this schedule, on their schedule that can beat them. They miss Alabama, they miss LSU, and they miss A&M. This is their big game right here. Scott, 11.5. Georgia Bulldogs projected to win by the odds makers in Vegas the most games in the SEC. Vanderbilt the least games. Your thoughts looking at these 14 teams?
Next.
All right.
Let's do your countdown.
All right, let's go and do the countdown. We're going to look at the East and West. We're going to start out at number 7. And folks, Arkansas fans, please forgive me. Rocket Sanders, KJ Jefferson. I had to put somebody last in the West. It is stacked. If you compare these two teams, it's a mismatch. They're 18-point favorites against this team right here. Obviously, that's the easy pick, 7 in the East. Not so easy here. But again, Arkansas, a dangerous team. Let's go to number 6, Dave. Number 6, the Auburn Tigers and the Missouri Tigers. Note, I do not have the Florida Gators here. I just can't do it. I cannot put the Missouri Tigers in front of the Florida Gators. I wanted to, but I could not put Eli Drinkwitz ahead of them. The Auburn Tigers, they had 18 transfers come in, 4-star transfers. They've got Peyton Thorne at quarterback, but I love Hugh Freeze. This guy can dial up. You talk about scoring points, Scott. This guy is a nemesis. He's an offensive genius, and he's going to rack up some points. I've got Auburn at number 6, but they play Alabama and Auburn and Georgia, so they could spring an upset, and they've got them both at home this year. 5. Who's number 5? Who do we got in the 5 slots? The Florida Gators. There they are at number 5 in the 5 hole in the East. Ole Miss at 5 in the West. Just bragging on Lane Kiffin and the Ole Miss Rebels. But again, they're going to have 4 teams ahead of him that are stacked in that Western division. Florida, 5.5. I'm going to say they're going to go over on their projection. They're going to beat somebody. They're flying under the radar. It's been a long time since the Tennessee Vols have went to the Swamp and beat the Gators. Watch out. They're going to get somebody this year. That's a dangerous team for just 5. They're getting disrespected. Let's look at 4. Number 4, the Mississippi State Bulldogs in the West. They returned 19 starters. 19 starters and Will Rogers. That team is being slept on right there, folks. They are battle-tested. They are a senior-laden team. And I've got the South Carolina Gamecocks over here. I love their quarterback, Spencer Rattler. South Carolina at number 4. A lot of people have them at number 3, but I've got them at number 4 because their schedule is tough. Tough schedule for them. I think they could be the team that could be 5.5 and switch to Florida. They could tank it this season. Watch them be under that 6.5 on their projected win total. I'm predicting them to go under, and I'm going to predict Mississippi State over. Number 3, love that Tiger, but not for the division championship. This team's strong in the lines of scrimmage. Brian Kelly, love him. He said it was going to take about 3 years to win a national championship at LSU. I think they're still a year away. They've got a great matchup. Again, as we talk about Florida State, watch that game. If they win that game, watch out for LSU. And then I've got Kentucky over here at number 3. I'm buying the Kool-Aid a little bit on Devin Leary, their quarterback. I love Barryon Brown. We saw him against the Tullahoma Wildcats a few years ago. He's going to have a big year in the SEC at wide receiver and in the return game. I've got Kentucky projected at number 3 in the East. Number 2, shocker, folks. Tennessee and Alabama. I got to go against my boys here. Number 2 in the West. That leaves one team in the West. Wait till you see who it is. I saw him go against Jalen Milroe, turn the ball over 3 times against Texas A&M last year. I'm worried about the quarterback position, especially with Alabama going to play at College Station against Texas A&M. That game concerns me. And I've got Tennessee at 2 in the East. They've got Joe Milton taking over at quarterback, but the Georgia Bulldogs have nobody prepared for like Tennessee does. Tennessee's got to play Alabama and A&M, then Georgia. 2, that's 3 tough games. Georgia's just got 1 game, so that's why I've got Tennessee in the East. Although I do believe Tennessee could upset number 1 Georgia and lose to Alabama and lose to Texas A&M and still have a chance with 1 loss. Well, with 2 losses would knock them out of the SEC championship. If they can win 2 out of those 3, they're in the national college football playoff picture in the SEC championship game. Same for Alabama. Here it is, folks. I told you, Jimbo Fisher's not calling plays anymore. Bobby Petrino is. He's left his girlfriend at Arkansas. I don't know if he has his motorcycle with him or not. They took that out of his claws. They have 20 returning starters on this team in Connor Wegman. They have the top running back in the nation coming in, Reuben Owens. They have Zach Stewart at wide receiver. This is going to be a dominant, explosive team on both sides of the ball at all levels. I'm projecting Texas A&M to beat out Alabama and LSU in the West and be the West champions. And I'm picking the Georgia Bulldogs only because I don't think they're necessarily stronger than A&M, but through attrition, through injuries and a tougher schedule, this team has the path of least resistance. The Georgia Bulldogs are going to be my SEC champions. Georgia, yes, will beat Texas A&M and become SEC champions again with a chance to three-peat for the national championship. Rat poison. I'm putting it on Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs. I'm putting all the pressure on them, Scott. National champion, possibly, but definitely SEC champion.
Well, I go along with most of that. Kentucky's overrated. Texas A&M's overrated. They'll falter at the end of the year. They always do. We got a new segment, and we're going to give it a roll. Pigskins Losers.
Florida at Utah. Wisconsin transfer Graham Mertz takes over quarterback for the Gainesville Swamp Lizards, while the Utes' Cam Rising is coming off a January ACL injury, which clouds his prospects of playing. The Gators' win total is projected at only 5.5, and this ain't one of them. Pigskins loser, Florida. Mercer at Ole Miss. The Mercer Bears track to Oxford to face the Rebel the Bear, who has been the official Ole Miss mascot since 2010. But Lane Kiffin will summon his land sharks to take a tasty bite out of the visiting Bears. Pigskins loser, the smaller bear, Mercer. Virginia at Tennessee. Smokey and his sidekick Davy Crockett invade Nissan Stadium to battle the Wahoos of Virginia. Time for UV head coach Tony Elliott to face the music in Music City, USA. Elliott says Vol AD Danny White offered him the coaching job prior to him hiring Josh Heupel. White says he did no such a thing and never offered. Expect the Vols QB Joe Milton to lead a big orange rampage and strike the final chords to Rocky Top, piercing the Cavaliers' eardrums. Pigskins loser, Virginia. UMass at Auburn. The Minutemen march into Jordan-Hare Stadium, and they will be in this game exactly 60 seconds before the War Eagles and their new head coach freeze frame their northern counterparts in their cleats. Pigskins loser, Massachusetts. MTSU at Alabama. The Blue Raiders from Murfreesboro bust to Bryant-Denny to face the GOAT Nick Saban and his Crimson Pachyderms. The Tide may play 3 quarterbacks in this one, but better not look ahead to a Longhorn invasion next week. MTSU survived a Cat 5 hurricane last year in Coral Gables and upset Miami. Not this time. Pigskins loser, Middle Tennessee. North Carolina versus South Carolina. This Charlotte scuffle for state bragging rights pits elite quarterbacks. Drake May of the Carolina Blue versus Spencer Rattler of the Gamecocks. The scoreboard would light up like an unidentified flying object, but in the end, the Rattler snake will inject some deadly venom into the heels of their in-state foes. Pigskins loser, North Carolina. Colorado at TCU. Deion Sanders and his Buffaloes barge into Texas, seeking to stampede the Horned Frogs. TCU was trampled by 58 points in last year's national championship. The Buffs are primed for the upset, but when cornered and in danger, a Horned Frogs defense mechanism is squirting blood out of its eyes into their predators. The Buffaloes are not quite ready for prime time just yet. Pigskins loser, Colorado. LSU versus Florida State. The Seminoles and Bourbon Street Bengal Tigers square off in my marquee matchup of the week. Both teams have national championship dreams, and LSU's best defensive lineman, Mason Smith, has been suspended for signing pre-NIL autographs. In a thriller, the purple and gold-clad Tigers will pull out a close one, and Brian Kelly will be signing autographs with jubilant LSU fans Sunday night. Pigskins loser, Florida State. Well, football brethren, that's all for this week. Fire up your grills, turn on the boob tube, and catch your favorite team this Labor Day weekend. I'll be back next week on Gold Ball Sports with more Pigskins losers.
All right, good stuff. I like that. All right, Dave, let's get right to it, son. You have a 2-minute warning.
All right, my 2 minutes are on. I'm going to take it to the house. I'm going to talk about the Little League World Series, and I have a video to show you real quick.
This ball driven to right. Ellis go! Grand slam to tie it for Curacao.
And with that, the Curacao team went ahead. No, they didn't. They tied it up. With that grand slam, they tied it up. And they went ahead and they lost. Hold on one second. We have another video. Okay.
Challenged him, and this game is over. Louis Lappy does it again. California, your Little League World Series champs on a walk-off home run.
And a back foot for the ages.
Forever it was up there. What a weapon Louis Lappy proved to be at this.
If you want to see sports at its finest, there it is, folks. Just go back to Little League Baseball. Y'all, if you missed a game, you missed great sports. And that's my 2-minute warning. Goes to California. Congratulations. And Curacao, congratulations on getting to the big dance. and almost defeating the big bad U.S. Eagle. But Lewis, number 19, came through. That's sports at its finest, y'all. And that's my 2-minute warning. Congratulations to California at the bottom of the 6th.
About unfair expectations versus unfulfilled potential, and particularly Arik Gilbert. You remember him, the mammoth tight end at a Marietta High School a few years ago. He played with his best friend and quarterback teammate Harrison Bailey. Fiercely recruited, Bailey committed to Tennessee. The Vols thought they was going to get both, but Gilbert took off to LSU. He had a pretty good freshman year, but after that, he got into some trouble. He transferred to Florida. He enrolled at Florida. He never played with the Gators. So, goes to destination number 3 to the Georgia Bulldogs is where he transferred, where he sat behind Brock Bowers and Darnell Washington in their shadows. So after 3 SEC stints and some off-the-field issues and headaches, Gilbert transferred to the University of Nebraska. 2 o'clock yesterday morning, he was arrested. He was arrested at 2 a.m. for burglary charges. He broke into a liquor store and vape shop. And listen to what he got out of there. It's just a sad story. Gilbert was found with a bag of stolen vape products and Delta 8, a psychoactive cannabinoid, cigars, and a lighter. Total value $1,672. I genuinely hope that Arik Gilbert will exercise the demons that's in his life right now and turn his life around. That he'll find the light. No, not the light that a vape pen presents, but the light that is truly the game-changing light of life, and that is the light of the world. Arik, turn it around. You're better than this. We're rooting for you here on Gold Ball Sports.
You got 15 seconds. You want to say something else?
No, that's it. Just, I mean, you know, sometimes we put unfulfilled expectations on these 5 stars that come out. And look, we got to understand they're just kids. They're just kids, and we put too much pressure on them sometimes. They make mistakes. They are accountable. So, that's all I got.
Good job.
Thanks.
My turn. Clock. There's the coffee pot, and it's big. And we all pay attention to that. But did you notice the coffee cup? Did you notice that the Tullahoma Wildcats soccer team shut out Coffee County 9-0? Much more dominant than the football win. 9-0 in soccer is like 80-0 in football. Tullahoma's got a special player, and I want you to know about her. Her name is McLean Bobo, and she is part of a set of triplets. There's Sam and Alex. They're all sophomores. Sam and Alex play football. Good size. They both getting a lot of playing time early in the season in their sophomore year. McLean started some games last year as a freshman in basketball, but it's the soccer field where McLean Bobo is a superstar. Tullahoma beat Coffee County 9-0 in the coffee cup. McLean Bobo had not 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. She had 6 goals, and she had 4 of them in the first 20 minutes. The game was over. That's not 1 hat trick. That's 2 hat tricks. I've never heard of anybody getting 2 hat tricks. Soccer, hockey, whatever, wherever they have hat tricks. By the way, what a stupid name for a sports milestone, a hat trick. Where did that come from? Who made up this hat trick thing? But I digress. Shout out big time, McLean Bobo, sophomore superstar for the Tullahoma Wildcats soccer team. They beat Coffee County 9-0. What'd we say the first part of the show? Coffee County, bad. Tullahoma wins. That's going to do it for episode 3, season 2 of Gold Ball Sports. Remember, Twitter, X, YouTube, Facebook. Follows, subscribe, likes, and shares. For Dave Myers and Ken Keller, I'm Scott Chastain. Be good to each other.